Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to present today's presentation in partnership with NOLA SHRM. My name is Paige Davis. I am the Director of Events and Membership Development for the New Orleans Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to start off with a couple of housekeeping notes for today's meeting. We will be doing a Q&A at the end, and all of our attendees are on mute. So if you could please, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please submit them in the text chat, and we will go through those at the end. I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Vice President, Ashley, to detail today's program.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for our webinar with NOLA SHRM. The New Orleans Chamber is a events-driven membership organization who focuses on networking, education, and advocacy. Obviously, today we're focusing on our educational piece of our mission. And I would like to take a brief moment to thank our Chairman's Council members, and they are our sponsors for all of our events. And they're the bigger companies in town, but they also help to underwrite the cost of us to do business. So we truly appreciate all of their support. And with that, I would like to get into today's programming. The New Orleans Chamber partners with local membership organizations to present educational seminars and webinars, such as NOLA SHRM, Society of Human Resources Management. And we partner with them to provide our members and with educational pieces and to broaden our reach to their organizations as well. So to get us started, I'd like to introduce Perry Scholes. He is the immediate past president of SHRM. Perry, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am really excited about this opportunity. And again, I want to, on behalf of my NOLA SHRM peers, thank the Chamber of Commerce for constantly engaging us and making HR a topic that is relevant in the business community. So I am joined today by two of my colleagues from NOLA SHRM, and we're going to take you through a past, present, and future version of our presidents who are here. So I'm really excited about this team. We've worked together for years, and so I'm going to kick it off, and then you're going to hear from Adrian Salvaggio and then Christine Watts, and we're going to take you through little vignettes, and then on the back end we'll do some Q&A. So I'm ready for slides. Sharing the deck. So as Ashley mentioned, I am the president and founder of Progressive HR Strategies. We are a human resources consulting firm here in New Orleans. We do work in New Orleans and in various places around the country, and in different spaces from diversity to staffing, outsourced HR, and a lot of work in the area around culture, and that's the center of the piece how we operate our organization. And so one just talked about hiring today, and so one of the things that we're finding really relevant in working with our clients is this need to rethink hiring and rethink it to the way that we are focusing on what is the most important thing that is critical to success on the job and success in the people that you're trying to attract to the organization, the speed at which we're moving and the need to get it right with the available talent. It's really important to get that hiring piece right. And so what we're suggesting is some of the things that you might have been doing before, like having really long processes or certain educational requirements and things like that, may not necessarily be appropriate. We've seen a shift in IT where at one point 10 years ago, it was you need a 4-year degree to work in IT. Now we're finding that People can go to boot camps and things like that, learn coding and certain things in IT, and then move successfully into roles that are very productive. So educational requirements is one thing that you should really take a look at to see if that is something that really is a predictor of success in the work and predictor in success in jobs, because it may open up your talent pool. The other thing is, I like to say when I'm doing diversity training, you have germs, you have biases. We all have biases, and they seep in consciously and unconsciously. And so when thinking about recruiting and doing recruiting processes, very simple things like a school and where you recruit from, or an applicant's education and where they got their degree, could be a bias for some member of the hiring team. And so understanding that and rooting that out, looking at all elements, again, education, previous experience, companies that someone may have worked for before, those are all tripwires for biases. And then there's some good things in biases, and then there's some bad things in biases. And so you just want to have an idea of, is there anything going on in this market with talent so scarce that might be coming up that's preventing you from getting the good talent? And then look internally. A lot of times we kind of know the warts and the wounds of our people that work for us, and sometimes we super judge them and go like they're not qualified or capable of doing that. But in reality, sometimes you have a person already in your organization that is a fit and maybe a better fit for a role that is going on, and that might help you move faster. They understand your culture, they get what you're all about. They can jump into a role that has been vacant for quite a bit of time. So how do you implement skills-based hiring? Really get to a process of trying to assess your organization. I'm going to talk about some technology that will help an organization assess skills and attributes of their staff that can really help facilitate this kind of assessment implementation process. So assessing the organization, what are the skills, look job by job, in particular for the hard to fill jobs, and jobs where you might be having a lot of turnover and churn, is to look at those jobs to make sure what you're doing to recruit and retain people in there is absolutely critical, and how can you do better. Building, again, internal, looking at the skill set of the people that you have on board, using some sort of tool or resource, whether it's getting your managers together on a regular basis and assessing that talent, talking about the people, and being mindful of biases that seep in a manager's mind about a person and their capability to do a job. I've seen many, many times where you switch a supervisor and a person does dramatically better job at work just with the new boss inside the same company. So internally is good. And then I'm going to talk about technology. So we talked about using AI and skill set pools to identify pools of people who could be applicants for demanding jobs. Next slide. When you're starting to look at, again, what does someone do in a job, and really peeling that down, requirements, I would say spend a lot of time talking to people who are in the job, attributes that are critical to success. If you're measuring that success, you should know what some of those things are, and determine what are the demands of the work. So you want to identify those things that might be stressing people out, where they're in meetings all day and they don't have time to sit and then do any of the work. That's a stressor, right? That's a demand for a particular job. So understand what we're asking people to do. Next slide. The other thing is, who's the person? Like, how's the person wired? How do they work? We all have what I like to call magic, or our superpowers or natural gifts. There are ways to assess what people's superpowers or natural gifts are. And there's an opportunity to use some very basic assessments, hiring specific assessments. Not all assessments are created equal, and not all assessments are applicable in a hiring setting. So knowing the difference there is also good. but identifying what are people's natural gifts, those things that they can do really well, less stressful. Someone out there loves cold calling and they get energized by it. Someone else is super stressed about doing a cold call. So identifying what are those natural abilities that come to people at work, and then putting them in the jobs where that skill set lines up is a really wonderful. We talk about highly engaged people. I think Adrian's going to talk about that piece, right? And so what are the other traits that you should be cautious of that, again, we don't want to put someone. I always talk about, I wouldn't be a great hire to be the person watching the nuclear weapon button. I'm sure I would touch it. I'm sure I would blow up a ton of us. And so, but there are people who are really good at looking at rows and rows of code and picking out a missing letter. That's a superpower. That's a gift. And there's ways to assess people and identify that on the job. Then my next slide is how well does the candidate fit? So a match of the work and match of the candidate together can help you identify the fit for that candidate. We have, again, from a bias standpoint, a lot of things that we call fit. We have managers doing a number of different things that are around, we're going to make them do this kind of test or that kind of test to sort of say, what's your favorite movie? Who's your superhero? All those weird things that come in that's about somebody trying to assess your fit. Those are interesting, but they're not scientific, and there are scientific ways to do that. And you can use this technology again to help you identify when a person is matched, fit of the job to what they bring to the table. And then these are the kinds of things will help people do work that's not overly stressful from how they're wired and doesn't really burn them out, and they get jazzed about the work. And so the last slide I'm going to talk about is an opportunity if you are the one after this right here. So there is an opportunity if you're looking to leverage some technology for identifying the right person for the right role. From this presentation, there is a link here. We'll get this sent out to you all. And if you have any questions, I'm here. I'll be here for the rest of the duration. I'm going to turn it over to my future president, Adrian Salvaggio, and she's going to talk to us about organizational culture.
Yes. So, thank you so much, Perry. Really appreciate it. So so as you said, my name is Adrian Salvaggio. I am the HR director over at Big Easy Blends in Elmwood, and I am the incoming president for NOLA SHRM for 2023. And we want to talk about organizational culture, right? So we just went through all of this work to find the right candidate. And now we're forced with this great resignation, right? We did all of this work before COVID. COVID happens, and now we're losing our good people. Some of them are coming back, which is great, but we're losing people. So we want to make sure that as we're working through all of these culture fits, behavioral fits, job fits, that we're actually going to keep these people around. So we want to talk about culture and our company culture, our organizational culture. And your company has a culture, whether you intended it or not, it's there. So we want to talk about what are the employee motivators. And I like to start off with some generational information because this group is the dominant one that's going to be in our workforce today and what's going to be coming in the future. So as we're building culture, we don't want to just think about who's in our workforce today. We want to look at building it for how it's going to go in the future. So let's talk about Gen X. Gen X, 1965 to 1980, this makes up 33% of our workforce. They're self-reliant, they take risks, and they like to balance their work and their personal life. And their motivators are independent work. They like to be viewed as competent. They like to have choices when they can, and they value top-down feedback. So getting a kudos from their boss or their boss's boss or the CEO, that's really going to be impactful for them, and that's a great way to keep them motivated. Now we have the millennials. This is the largest group in our workforce right now, 1981 to 1996. And for some, millennials a bad word, but their characteristics are a lot different from Gen X. They have to have connection to their work. If they don't have a connection to their work, they're out of there. They need to feel valued. And where they're looking at their value is what kind of technology are they able to use. They're very, very tech savvy. And diversity and change is what's important to them. So how do we motivate them at work? They need opportunity to work collaboratively. They may be chatty a little bit, right? You may look at them and say, well, all they do is talk all day. Well, that's how they're getting energy. That's how they're working. They're working together, and they're actually going to be more productive if you give them that opportunity. Technology is giving them the opportunity to utilize technology to do their work. They value time off, right? So they are the ultimate demanding time off, as opposed to just saying, oh, I'm not going to take my vacation. They're going to take every bit of their vacation, and they may even take some unpaid if they can get it. They value structure and learning opportunities, and they want immediate feedback. If they're doing something that's not correct, they want to know. If they're doing something awesome, they want to know, and they value that immediacy with the feedback. So what's coming up? We've got Gen Z. They're just now starting to enter the workforce, 1997 to 2012, and they're currently about 5%. But this generation is going to be big, and they're going to come in with a vengeance on our workplaces if we aren't paying attention. They've got a short attention span. There's some reports that I'm saying that says Gen Z has the attention span of 8 seconds, which, if you're familiar with goldfish, it's about the same time attention span as a goldfish. So very short attention span. They filter information out quickly. So they can tell in a short amount of time if this pertains to them or if this is going to be of value to them. And if it's not, they've moved on to the next thing. They will be perceived as job hoppers for that reason, with the short attention span. And they have a knack for ghosting employers. A lot of HR professionals are dealing with this now, where we're actually seeing interview candidates just not show up, people you hire just not show up for your first day. And this is going to continue to be a situation where it's just, if they don't have value, if they don't perceive value to it, they're just going to move on, and they're not going to worry about being polite or being professional, because that's just not how they think or how they operate into the terms of ghosting an employer. So how do we motivate this group? They like responsibility, and they really like meaningful work. They appreciate social rewards. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're talking about badges, things that they can hang up, things that they can post on their social media. They also value structure. They want some clear direction and constant feedback. So where the millennials want that immediate, the Gen Z want it all the time. If they're on the right track, they want to know they're on the right track. If they're doing something wrong, they want to know. And this is where they may feel a little needy to some of us that are a little older, especially the Gen X. They may feel a little needy. So we have to kind of work some of that into our culture. How can we motivate them with that constant feedback that they're craving without it feeling like we're constantly having to babysit? So we want to make sure that we balance that very carefully. Okay. So where do we start, right? So we need to take a look in the mirror, and we need to look at how we are set up as a company, as an organization. What are our work schedules like? Are they spending more time at work than they are at home? How much time and what kind of time are they spending at home? Manufacturing is currently what I'm in. We have a night shift. What does work look like? What does their home life look like when they're working the night shift, right? Are they asleep when everybody else in their family is awake? How can we balance that? How can we make sure that they're getting that quality time at home and then with their work schedules? What is your turnover rate like? Definitely one of the key metrics for all HR departments, right? The higher the turnover rate, the more costly that hire is going to be. And it costs the company a great amount of money to have to rehire and retrain. How is your engagement? What kind of recognition programs do you have? If you don't have a recognition program in place now, you need to get one quick, because that's what these millennial and Gen Z workers are going to be wanting. They want to be able to pat themselves on the back and to share the kudos that they're getting from their boss, from their peers, and from everyone in the organization. Does your company have a net promoter score? If they don't, what do the employee referrals look like? generally people won't recommend your company to their friends and family if they're not happy with the work, right? So if you've got some good employer referrals, and that's pretty easy to track most, you can just utilize it on your ATS, your applicant tracking system with the source, right? Employee referral. And that's an easy one to track. How many referrals are you getting? How many hires are coming in, and kind of following that number and seeing if it's trending up or down. What are your benefits like? Do you have good benefits? Do you not have good benefits? How is that perceived? And then the last one to kind of look at is your performance appraisals. Are you doing them? Does the employee have an opportunity to share how they think they're doing? And are you doing them only once a year? Are you doing them twice a year? What does that look like, right? So all of that is some of the stuff that you as a company need to evaluate and then assess if that is what you want, and if that's the kind of culture that you're trying to build, and then you'll make your changes as needed with the different elements. So how do we get the information we need? So we've looked in the mirror, we've identified who we are and who we want to be as we go forward, and there's going to be a gap. There's always a gap. So how do we get that information? So we want to look at how are we doing as an organization? What do our employees think they want, and what do they actually want? How do people want to be motivated? What are other companies, especially our competitors, what are they doing that we could be doing that we're not doing? Where are we missing the boat? And of course, how do you get that information, right? So we want to do things like surveys, getting feedback from our current employees, from our previous employees. Are you doing exit interviews? And we want to make sure that we're offering them a psychologically safe way that's going to be free from judgment and retaliation to provide us this information. There's some great third-party companies that can come in and do a survey for you if you want something really, really robust. It could be something as simple as taking a slip of paper and asking a couple of questions and having people fill it out and drop it in a box. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. You can utilize SurveyMonkey. I think they give you up to 10 questions for free. You can do a focus group. You can start doing one-on-ones where your supervisors sit down and have conversations one-on-one with the employees, where it's a time for you as the supervisor to listen and not talk. It's about getting feedback. As you're going through the benefits renewal process, bring in an employee or two that you might want to get their take on. What is important to you as an employee to see in your benefits, right? And you want to make sure that any surveys that you do, you take away actionable steps and actionable feedback. Because if you're doing the survey and you don't ever respond to it, that actually can hurt morale more than if you didn't do the survey at all. So that's just kind of a quick caveat on that survey. So any information you get, share the information and create some actionable steps from that. All right. And I lost my tab real quick. Okay. All right, Christine. And then once you've got your information, let's rethink the employee experience. What are some things that we can do as a company to improve the employee experience? Mental health and wellness benefits are huge right now. Coming out of COVID, a lot of people have gone through some things personally, and they want to make sure that their wellness is going to be taken care of. They want to make sure that they have got benefits for mental health. Wherever you can add a zero cost benefit to the employee, that's huge. And a lot of companies are starting to look at critical medications like insulin or EpiPens as being a zero cost benefit to the employee. So it's time to start thinking a little bit out of the box and get creative with some of our benefits. What about flexible work schedules? Is hybrid an option for your organization? Maybe some roles it is, maybe some roles it isn't. Do they have to be there from 8 to 4? If it's easier for someone, could they work from 7 to 3? Could they work from 10 to 6? Does your company have that capability to be a little more flexible with when they're actually working? Do they have to sit at their desk for 8 hours a day? If they get the work done, can they go home? Are you doing one-on-ones? Are you doing stay interviews? Stay interviews is something that we've started to see trending upward, and it really is super important for your workforce, especially those people that are in the critical roles that are hard to replace. What is keeping you here? What would lure you away? what's the biggest motivation for you to come to work? Basic questions like that will really help give you insight into the employee experience and give you some things that you could expand into in terms of your benefits, your schedules, etc. Are you doing training and development? This is going to be a key focus that millennials and Gen Z are going to want to ask. How can you develop me, right? How can I get additional training here at your organization that's going to make me a better employee, potentially better marketable, more marketable, right? Which we want to retain them, but we have to develop them. What are some employee perks? And some of these are no cost to the employer. There's lots of platforms out there that give you access into discount programs, no cost to the employer. The employee gets a little perk. They can shop for vacations on a specific website, get tickets at a discounted price, things like that. In addition to some other things that you could do, is it parking? Is it putting in a Keurig machine and saying, here's the Keurig machine, you're in charge of bringing your own pods, right? Or once a month, we'll throw in a flavored coffee. It doesn't have to be expensive, right? It just has to be something that the employees will value. Do you have a recognition program? We talked a little bit about that earlier. These are going to be very important. And again, they don't have to cost a lot of money. A lot of the human resource platforms now have a recognition platform actually built in. It could be just a simple saying, here's a little sticker, good job, thanks for your help with that, showed great teamwork. And it's something that anybody can give, so peer-to-peer as well as top-down. And what kind of company events are you doing? Big Easy Blends this year has put a big focus on company events. We've been doing Food Truck Fridays. We're the first Friday of every month in the spring, which is our busy season. We had a food truck and we paid for the food truck to come, and it served lunch for both shifts. And it was great. And it was simple, right? It was a food truck. They came, they did everything, but our employees, it gave us an opportunity to share lunch with them and to say, thank you. And we appreciate everything that you do. So now we have to execute. How do we do that? Look, I gave you lots of options. You've got to look and see what makes sense for your organization. Educate your managers on any new culture initiatives. You can't just be like, oh, let's do this. The managers need to know what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the goal of the initiative is, because they're going to be the ones that are driving it and helping you to sustain it. Meaningful recognition strategies, peer-to-peer and top-down. Peer-to-peer is important because that's the person that they're on the line with every day. Top-down, as we saw with the millennials, they value that feedback from their direct supervisor, from their boss's boss, or all the way up the chain. So we want to make sure that our managers are engaged with that. And then lastly, you've got to have fun. There's so much data out there now that's saying that having fun in the workplace, we're at work more than we're at home. Let's have fun while we're there. Host company or department events. It doesn't have to be with everybody. A lot of our companies are fairly large, so you can't do something for everyone, but maybe it's just your department. Go play golf, or go do a happy hour in the afternoon, or go get manicures and pedicures. That's what I took my HR department to do, and it was super fun. Gamification is going to be big. How can we make this a game? And you're starting to see that with some of the wellness programs. If you go get your annual doctor's visit, you get some points. If you go do this, you get some points. If you walk 10,000 steps per day, you get some points, and all of that adds up to either a present or a gift you can buy, discounts on your benefit premiums, things like that. Another option is going to be service opportunities. Remember when we talked about millennials and Gen Z and how they want to have meaningful work? That can also expand into, what is the company doing philanthropically, and how can I get involved with that? And how does that mission or that goal of the company on its philanthropic end, how does that tie into my personal beliefs and what I want to do and who I want to give it back to with my time and my money? And then you continue to evaluate. You've got to review it. You've got to tweak. You've got to improve. On the side, I've got a little clip there from the MetLife annual employee benefit trend study. And so you can kind of see some of the things that are factors that will increase longevity, right? Will increase that retention. And the first one is purposeful work. One action step that you can take that's very simple and doesn't cost anything comes from Steve Brown, who's the vice president of La Rosa's Pizzeria in Cincinnati. And he challenged his managers to say thank you to each employee every day for 30 days. Simple, right? And a lot of people say, you want me to tell people thank you for showing up to work? And he's like, yes, I absolutely do. Half of the managers did, half the managers didn't. And the stores that participated reported a more positive work environment, more engaged employees, and absenteeism and turnover decreased simply from saying, thank you for being here today. How often do you say thank you to your employees? Something to think about. And now I'm going to turn it over to Christine to talk a little bit more about the Great Resignation and give us some statistics and facts and some really interesting stuff. So Christine, take it away.
Thanks, Adrian. That was some great things to think about. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Great Resignation and fact or fiction. I know for a while people thought it may have just been fiction, right? Just a way to increase rates, have people a little scared on how to fill those positions. But the business, the Street Business Journal on June 29th, 2022 stated that 47.4 million workers actually quit their jobs in 2021. Think about how many jobs and how many people that got reshuffled, and also called the big quit area. So, you know, just the way that we think about it, it's truly fact and not fiction. And it has affected each and every one of us, even if not on our jobs and our positions and our organizations, but from the simplest thing as going out to eat at a restaurant, or even our vacation experience. We're gonna have less people in our service industries. Then we can look at the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. Here, it just shows that unprecedented numbers in the workforce, people quitting and leaving. The government is always behind. So we're seeing the 2021 numbers, but as you can tell, nothing is changing and it just continues. So there's 5 key factors that influence this time period that we're dealing with now: retirement, relocation, reconsideration, reshuffling, and reluctance. Think about that, retiring. I'm not sure if you know, but we've had an uptick in 1% in the retirement community. More people are considering retiring either early or that may never even consider retiring at all before. So what happens is that rate increases, but at the same time, we have more younger workers in our workforce. So that's a different, like Adrian pointed out earlier, just a different way of thinking, a different way of communicating with our workforce. But the relocation has also affected us. There was a sharp decline in relocation from different cities and different areas of the country since the 1980s. But in the last 70 years, I hate to say it, more people are relocating, but guess what? It's locally. So, you know, we may not think about it as a national issue, but think about it in our own communities. With Hurricane Ida, right? Laplace was hit very hard, all St. Charles Parish. So what happens to our greater New Orleans area? We're actually picking up more residents in our city. So more areas in our city may be highly populated, which causes our housing to be short market. And then at the same time, that increases our rates because supply and demand. Also, the reconsideration. Let's talk about that. The one thing, the mental health, Adrian also mentioned, but that's the burnout. The burnout is actually something that we really need to consider and always take in effect. The shorter the shorter chances of filling our positions. Also, the lower amount of people we have willing to fill those positions, those people that come to work day in and day out with that short staff are actually having to do more and have to work more days, longer hours to be able to have our businesses succeed. So that's causing burnout, but not only from the shortest of staff, the pandemic, the subject we do not want to talk about. COVID-19 and the increase right now in our communities is also going to be an effect. It's going to, I know myself, I work in a school system, and it's already a concern for us with the uptick in numbers because when a teacher goes out, that's students that doesn't have someone in a classroom. So that not only affects our students, that affects our households. The learning is what we need, but the burnout in particular with the frontline workers, parents, caregivers, the organizational leaders, right? The people that drive the bus to make sure that we get where we need to go are all experiencing that. But we can't forget this is also called a reshuffle. People have left certain industries because they want to do what makes them feel happy. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is to those places of employment, my particular loves, education and construction. Those particular industries are really taking a hit when it comes to qualified workers in the workforce, but also our food service. We already mentioned hospitality and also leisure or resorts or really feeling it, especially in the city, because, you know, we are a place of tourism. And even if it's not people from the outside, we love to be tourists in our own cities so we can actually see the effects that are going on. But let's not forget, like worldwide organizations like McDonald's. This has made the reshuffling really even a bigger deal to make it even realer to us. McDonald's entry wage went from $11 an hour to $17 an hour in some areas, just to be able to fill those positions. Also, think about your organization and the offering of benefits. This may have also encouraged you to offer more to attract more, right? So we think about emergency childcare. We talk about more time off. We talk about tuition reimbursement. And let's not forget the biggest trend with pet insurance, because our furry babies are still our babies. And if that can attract someone maybe that we wouldn't attract before to have that benefit, that might actually land you an employee you may not think that you can land just by having the certain benefit to attract them. Reluctance. Ooh, let's talk about that wonderful COVID-19 keeps coming up. Many people feared to return to the workplace during the COVID-19 or even after, right? And now we still have 29% of our local workforce in the greater New Orleans area working from a distance on an everyday basis. But more and more we're moving to hybrid and maybe some flex scheduling going on. But 57% reported they choose to work from home because of concerns with COVID-19. Because if it doesn't affect us, we can be carriers that affect our family members, people that have illnesses, and the biggest thing, the ADAs, the accommodations and the medical issues that we might not know about, because we all have some hidden issues that we actually deal with. But our survey also found that 10,000 workers said 36% said if they could find a new job working remotely or hybrid, they would take it. So remember, when we're looking at people, it's not just the people in our area and in our organizations, but we have to think about the people coming into our organizations. What can we do to continue to attract and retain? Job satisfaction. I know we talked a good bit about this and the things that maybe they would need. But if you look at this particular graph, second and third rank employees, they want to be true to themselves, right? Being at a job that really helps you to be oneself is a meaningful, fulfilling, and that's second and third on this list. If you look at it, finding my fulfillment and can I be my true self are very meaningful. Also in the survey, 65% of workers discuss issues with colleagues sometimes may be a communication issue, because we have those higher number of younger workers. And then we also have 73% more of ethnic minorities in our workforce. So it's learning how to communicate with people with differences. And that could be just facilitating, like Adrienne said, so maybe some company events, some really getting to know people around you, because we have small talk and we may talk a lot as our younger generation, but it helps us to be able to relate to the people around us and build that community within our organizations. Recruiting. When there's a decline in the workforce, what are we supposed to do? Well, we need to tap into markets we maybe never thought about, right? Things that, some industries I know, such as manufacturing, Adrienne might have an age limit, but there's also ways that we can bring on interns and other people that may can help us through our challenges. We actually have a decline in using workplace high school students. So if we're able to place them in our workforce, they can have increase the responsibility, they can enhance their communications, and they also can help build their resume, because an intern today can be a professional tomorrow, and we need to remember to invest Also, our disabled persons. That is the greatest number of unemployed people in our country. So remember, sometimes we can have hearing impaired or vision impaired people in certain roles. And also, they have the greatest retention rate among any class of workers. So if you can place someone, they'll actually stay with you because you haven't invested in them. Also, let's not forget about the foreign born. And also, we had a decline in US visas, people coming into the United States to work from foreign countries for high need positions. But remember, there are areas where we can actually bring people in. And Pew Research actually said there was a spike in unemployment rates over the pandemic, especially due to people not being able to come to our country from foreign countries to fill these positions. But it is a great way to fill the hard to fill positions, and also having people in our country here where we can actually have a better input in our communities. Retirees, I know we talked about that before, more and more people are retiring, but think about that. They say 1/3 of people who retire actually return to the workforce. They call it a reverse retirement. So people do get back invested in our community. Those people hold a lot of knowledge that could provide us guidance for the future in a lot of different roles we should not close the door on. And then ex-offenders. Those ex-offenders are in our communities, and I know sometimes we don't want to talk about it or we don't want them to check the box. I understand all of those concerns, but think about it. The first year they're released, 60 to 75% remain unemployed. So that first year is very important to get them engaged and being productive in our communities. It also gives them the ability to become stable and provide meaning and purpose, not only in their lives, but to participate in community events. So 2022, is this the last of the Great Resignation? I mean, that's the burning question, right? Is this ending? What's going on? What are we going to do with it? Well, the unemployment rates, 6% climb in March of 2022. So we're not seeing any decline at this point, especially with so many people still leaving their jobs and figuring out what makes them happy. But you know what? We have people in jobs today at every one of our organizations. And it's about retaining them, asking those questions, making sure you see what that person's best fit is, like Perry said, identifying that personality and that strength, but also finding out what means something to them. Inflation. Ooh, that's another hot topic, right? Every time we turn on the news, it's a raise in the interest rate. If not, it's a discussion about the next raise in the interest rate. But what? Anytime you give out $5 trillion of stimulus money during COVID-19, the downturn, right? Also, $7,000 billion was used to pay unemployment benefits during that time. Of course, the dollar became weak and inflation continues to climb. So that inflation also affects the amount of money people need to survive and to live. Just on NBC News yesterday, they talked about the increase of food, went up actually 12% in the last quarter. So it costs more just to have regular meals at home or in a restaurant. Housing, we also touched on that before, but the housing cost continues to increase because the supply and demand is there. They're building less new homes. That means the housing market is shorter and in more demand. But also NerdWallet reported a 30-year fixed mortgage rate is now over 5.3%. And as we all know, the inflation rates continue to rise, and that is a big concern for everyone. But lastly, let's talk about how all of this affects you. Businesses are not immune to the effects of the economy, especially not inflation. That means even a business credit is more costly now. So the costs go up, the wages go up, but if we can avoid some of the turnover, we can also avoid some of the costs. So knowing how to address the employee concerns, bring the things to the table that are important to them, it's all a win-win. We just have to be able to prepare before everyone jumps ship. So I thank everyone for their time. And now I'll ask Ashley to help us with questions.
Yeah, so thank you all three of you for your thoughts on all of this. I do have a few questions. This one we can direct to Perry. What type of AI assessments are you using that are out there right now to hire new employees?
So as I said earlier, the assessments are not all created equal. Some assessments are designed for team building and helping once you've selected people. And then there are specific assessments that are defensible if you're using them in a hiring setting. So one of those assessments that I'm very familiar with in my organization as a certified partner is predictive index. And so that assessment will allow you to work with leveraging the science of predictive index. It was designed in the 50s to identify fighter pilots. And so it's really specific about identifying work skills, work attributes, motivators, behaviors that can predict outcomes and success at work. And so it's the one that I enjoy most bringing to my clients. And I know Adrian has had some success in a previous life using predictive index. And it's also, I've given a link that's available for anyone who wants to do a little bit of a trial for a hiring situation. And so you guys can share that out, but it's my favorite. And not only is it good for hiring and defensible, but it's also good for team building. So Adrian talked about culture and all of those things inside. So, I can, use my profile to understand how I work with Adrian, how I work with Christine or any other member of the organization. And it will help us to work on our relationship. And as long as we're committed to doing that, they're really fun and fast tools there. We talked about looking internally. So there's a methodology where you can use the assessment against, if you've identified, and let's say you've got 10 hard jobs in your organization, you can create a job profile for those 10 jobs. And then if you've got 100 employees in your organization, you can run the profile of those 100 employees against those 10 hard to fill jobs and find out which employees have the motivation and the drive and the skill sets to match up to those 10 jobs, and then talk to them internally about that opportunity. And so when we're talking about leveraging people that are already in your building, already know your culture, they already love the benefits that you have, they already know that you are if you can do things to make that experience better, then you're really going to be able to get to, if I move a millennial to another job, it's like they started a new job. So they don't realize it's another 2 years I might be able to keep them, right? Because they're looking for that variety. So predictive index is the one that I like the most as a HR consultant and as a professional. I don't know if Adrian wants to comment on her experience with it.
Yeah, it's definitely helped me. I have used it quite a bit. And it's an easy platform, which is great. I think from a user side, the platform is very clean. For the applicant side, it's pretty straightforward and pretty user friendly. And there are a couple other ones out there. I know some HR professionals that really like Strength Finders. That's another one that's out there, which is a little different, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered a couple of them. But and there's so many of them. When you look out there, there's the Anagram, there's the Strength Finders, there's Culture Index, there's Myers-Briggs that people will use. So there really is a lot out there. But the one that the predictive index, I've used that, and I would agree with Perry. I think that's my favorite.
Yes, it's definitely a favorite of the chambers as well, because we use it as a team building as well. And it's great to know how everybody's brain works.
Sure.
Another question, why don't we go with each of you? Everybody wants to name their top free employee benefit and where to find it.
I'll go first. One of the great things when I was in construction, I know y'all might say this is crazy, but our project manager was so busy. What we did was partner with the local dry cleaners. So they would pick up the dry cleaners for them at their desk and return their dry cleaning for them. All they had to do was leave a check for payment there, and it was seamless. So when we think in free benefits, sometimes it's just about the things that causes convenience. Also, if you could find a local pharmacy that does delivery, that person doesn't even have to miss time from the desk, the office, from picking up at the pharmacy, because we all know how that can drain our time and energy sometimes. So just those free delivery services.
That's great. Okay, I guess I'll go next. I guess I'm on the perk side of things, right? So we 2021, we kind of revamped all of our benefits, and we didn't offer life insurance at the time. So that was something that we're able to add in, because I think with COVID, everybody kind of got, there was some mortality awareness, right? That this is, I need to plan maybe a little bit more. So having that life insurance, just as a little safety net, I think definitely our employees appreciated that, and it's at no cost to them whatsoever, and the cost to the company was very minimal. So it was a really great opportunity for us to add some value. We also didn't offer short-term or long-term disability at the time, so we added that. And again, it's a voluntary, so it doesn't cost the company anything, but for the employees, being able to have those safety nets, I think was really, really important, and they're pretty low cost. From the perk side, we have, so with Big Easy Blends, we make a lot of products, and some of them are for those 21 and up, and some of those aren't. So we take the ones that aren't, like our AC slush puppy smoothies that we do for Welch's, and we actually stock a deep freeze in the break room for them, so that they not only can they take some home to be like, hey, look what I made today, but also to have to sample our products, to taste our products, to have a snack, whatever it is. And then in addition, we started the Food Truck Fridays, and we're doing a mid-year party and a Christmas party for our employees. So just to get some time to spend together as a team that's not work related. And we're definitely seeing people look forward to those things. When we hang the sign up for the Food Truck Fridays, they're like, oh, food, it's that time again. And we did, for July and August, we just scaled it back a little bit, and we just did a barbecue. So we had the plant manager, we had myself, we had some other, the owners come out, and literally we're grilling in front of the building, right? And the employees were more excited about watching the plant manager work the grill than the food trucks. And it cost us like a third of the price. So it was really just fun to see. And they'd come out and they'd cut up. And again, it was an opportunity for us as leadership to kind of to serve those that work for us. And it was just really impactful, and it was super fun. So I'm definitely on the benefits are great, but I definitely like perks.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. And last thing I'll just talk about is I think some of the examples that came up from both Christine and Adrian is reading the culture. So like the insurance stuff, like so my organization, we do employee benefits, and I'll tell you that $10,000 of term life insurance coverage for all your employees is really inexpensive. Really, you may be spending more for the snacks that you put in the break room than you would to buy term life insurance, and which is pretty impactful. So I'd say reading the room to know what might be appropriate, like the COVID thing coming up, and then that mortality piece. I would also say Christine talked about pet insurance. I think that's also another thing. So just look at survey your employees, get their opinion about things, and then the culture stuff, just really having fun. And they want the leaders of the organization to be real people, and people that they can relate to, and work in the grill in the sun, to pump out burgers. Nothing's realer than that, and having fun with the employees and things like that. So I said, just think about that. And then, like wellness stuff, leverage your other vendors that you work with that can bring things to the organization that is of value. And I would say also just change things up, because, you know, having something that where it becomes like, you know, a given, they undervalue of it if it's been done so long that, you know, they it gets to the point where it's not appreciated anymore. So
Great. We have time to quick answer one last question. Thinking about strategies for small businesses, and it's a small team, and a few employees are spending a lot of time creating a positive culture where everyone can thrive. What are some good ways to get feedback from them, not anonymously? Is it during team meetings or one-on-ones, or is there a way that y'all have found to get positive or negative feedback from your team members that's best?
I've always liked the one-on-one. Ask them direct questions, you know, let them know that you want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, and then what can we be doing better? How can we improve? I think that the one-on-ones is a great way, because you're going to hear all the voices, whereas if you do it with a group, you may only hear one or two.
Yeah, at Algiers Shorter, we do a CEO focus group, and that group actually helps us to spend time with the CEO, express concerns, what we see is going on, some suggestions, and also get to know each other. That way we have relationships in every part of our organization.
Yeah, and the last little thing I'll pump in, similar to the CEO thing, a company I worked for before, we had focus groups with the CEO, like the lowest level employees in the room with the CEO and the owner. And then the also really interesting thing was we invited, in some cases, spouses to a dinner to talk about the company, because we had some really interesting things that came out of that, because we go home and we talk about our work, right? And so it was always interesting, and that was done with myself as the head of HR and the owner and CEO of the company with the employee groups. And then you dig down. It's a way to check the values. If you've got your values on the wall and you don't actually go out and ask people, how are we doing about the values? Then you're not getting a real read. And so I would say, go out and sit in front of people and do it on a regular basis, random, and those kinds of things to make it truly effective.
Fantastic. Well, that is all the time we have for questions, and I will let Paige close us out.
Thank you so much to NOLA SHRM, and especially Perry, Christine, and Adrian for your time and your very valuable insights. We absolutely love partnering with SHRM, and we will be forwarding the presentation out to all of our attendees. So please be on the lookout in your email. We'll share the link, especially that Perry mentioned. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us here at the Chamber, as well as the team at NOLA SHRM. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.